Hello and welcome to another episode of All Politics is Local. I'm your host, John Tian. All Politics is Local is a production of the Greater Blackstone Valley Democrats. For more information about the Greater Blackstone Valley Dems, feel free to visit our website at www.gbvdems.org. We have yet another great show planned for you tonight. In the spirit of all politics being local, we have Mike Visconti, candidate for Selectman here in the town of Milford, here to make his case to the voters as to why he should be elected Selectman in our springtime election, which is Tuesday, April the 7th this year. Mike, welcome to All Politics is Local. It's a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
You're quite welcome.
Me. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. Let's talk a little bit about why you're running for Selectman and what it is that you want to accomplish. Give us a quick, why should people vote for you, basically?
I am running for Selectman because I believe I can help the taxpayers of Milford. I am a very objective decision maker. I base all my voting decisions on facts, common sense, and logic, and none of my voting decisions will be made on emotions. This is my second time running for Selectman. I did lose my first time around. However, as they say, you etch your victories in stone, you write your defeats in sand. So I am back.
Cool. Well, it's good to have you back in the race.
I am a very conservative spender, and I believe that I will add and complement a nice balance to the current board.
Okay.
I am an educated person, but I am also, and I believe this is very important, I am very streetwise. I didn't grow up on the streets, but I am very familiar with street sense, street politics. I am my own person. I am not affiliated in any way with any special interest group or person. My votes and my decisions are my own. Now, having said that, I listen to everything anybody and everybody has to say. I gather information, I formulate it, and I ultimately vote based on the information I have gathered and based on my own common sense and logic.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about some of the issues, perhaps that might come up in a selectman's race. For one thing, anybody who has ever been to town meeting or who has watched town meeting on Milford TV knows you because you get up frequently and address town meeting on a variety of topics. Are there any specific topics that you've addressed at town meeting in the past that you think might come up in the election and in the race?
I believe that the people of my precinct have elected me to be a town meeting member, and they expect me and all other town meeting members to look out for their interests and not just to, as I have said before, rubber stamp articles that come before a town meeting. As you and other citizens of Milford may know, I have taken the podium on certain issues because I felt they were important and something had to be said. I don't expect people to agree with me all the time. What I do hope to do is get people thinking, especially the town meeting members. I want them to think before they vote. Whether they agree with me or do not agree with me, I want them to think about what they're voting and don't give an automatic yay to every article. We have some very good people as town meeting members, and I respect every one of them. They all have their own opinions, and that's fine. I have mine, and as you might expect, I believe I'm on the right track. I have, I have taken the podium to speak on, for example, the Woodland School issue. On the Woodland School issue, I am not opposed to, and I was never opposed to a new school. What I was opposed to was that school in that location. And there's a big difference between being opposed to a school and that school in that location. I had the opportunity to examine the plans for the new school in depth. I saw some issues that concerned me, I reviewed them with the architect to be certain that in fact what I was reading off the plan was in fact correct. He confirmed that yes, I was correct in what I was understanding from the plan. I noticed there were several life safety issues, which I brought up on town meeting floor to make town meeting members aware that there were some life safety issues and there were some critical flaws in the design plans for the new school.
Can you elaborate on exactly what those life safety issues and design flaws were?
There were, not to get into the whole new school, Woodland School debate again, but there were issues with fire department access, there were issues with loading and unloading, and their proximity to play areas and recreation areas. There were issues with radii, turns, and the ability for large or average size life safety vehicles to make the turns in an emergency when they needed to. Among those were probably the most important ones.
Okay.
Now it was I hope, and I shouldn't assume, but I hope that the Woodland School Building Committee has now realized those flaws and have taken steps to correct those critical flaws in the plan.
Okay, terrific. Anything else that you'd like to discuss on things that you've brought up at town meeting? I know you get up to the podium quite often, so Woodland School certainly wasn't the only issue you've ever spoken out about.
I know, you know, there were many, and when you have to try to remember them, there were so many you don't know what to pick from. I did take the podium to speak on the last budget that was proposed, and my experience. And once again, I don't want to get into the whole issue of town meeting, but my experience has been, and this is factual, go back and look at the tapes. Every year the budget comes up and is rubber stamped by the town meeting members. I rose this past year, to ask the town meeting members not only not to rubber stamp the budget, but I also proposed an amendment to reduce the increase in the budget to zero and vote on a level-funded, level-service budget. And that is doable. That is very doable. We have very intelligent managers running our different departments, including the school department. There is no reason why they cannot formulate a level-funded, level-service budget. Now, okay, so, you know, you may not be able to buy a $1 million pen. You may have to settle for a $500,000 pen. But, and I'm exaggerating to make a point, but in any case, it can be done. I also offered my help on a volunteer basis to any department, school, highway, and I'm not picking on those two, just as examples, any department or any board, if they would like me to assist them in any way in formulating a level-funded, level-service budget. I have a tremendous amount of experience in preparing and administering multi-million-dollar budgets for many different organizations. And I would be willing to offer my help at no charge, of course, because I believe that it's important for citizens to volunteer their time to the town. And where I come from, when you volunteer your services, you neither expect nor accept compensation.
Mm-hmm. Well, that does sound like certainly a qualification for selectmen, and certainly the selectman's position does have a stipend. It's not a huge amount of compensation, but good for you that you're willing to do that for the town. That's you know, it's kind of like a way to give back to the town. You know, when you live in a place like Milford where you know, everything is really well done and it's a well-run town, you can be proud of it, and you want to give back, and you want to make sure that you know, that the right thing is done basically for people in town.
As long as you brought up the selectman's stipend, as I promised last time around, I will make the same promise this time, and I keep my promises. I believe that the selectmen have to lead, and a lot of leadership is done by example. To that end, I will not accept any stipend as a selectman.
Okay, so
Once again,
you'll leave that in the
It's,
budget.
I look at the selectman as a volunteer position. I'm volunteering to hold that position, and as a volunteer, I neither expect nor accept any compensation.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the one big elephant in the room every year, taxes. Where do you feel the levy should go? Should we raise taxes to the levy? Should we drop short of the levy? Should we try to sock some more money away in our rainy day fund? Things of that nature. What's your opinion on the tax rate here in Milford?
I believe there is a misunderstanding with respect to Prop 2.5. Prop 2.5 was not designed to be an invitation to raise 2.5 to 2.5. It was designed as a fail-safe for towns not to be able to go over 2.5. So I believe that misunderstanding is out there. Hence, there is no reason to raise to the levy, which gets back to the budget being reined in and controlled. And how we do that is difficult, agreed, but it is doable. And the selectmen and the position of selectmen definitely set the tone for the rest of the departments in terms of spending money. As I said, I'm a very conservative spender, and as such, I will add I know I will add a nice balance to the current board, being a conservative spender. I know we have to pay taxes. Everybody knows we have to pay taxes. We have to run the town. Here's what I don't understand, or I do understand, but here's what gets me. There are categorical statements made by administrators as to how great the Milford taxpayers have it compared to other towns, which are made, as far as I can see, based on no substance whatsoever. So let's talk about some facts, and let's talk about some taxes. And let's not compare Milford to surrounding towns. Let's compare Milford to Milford, which is a better comparison to make. If we do that, we will see that in the 10 to 12 years following 2002, 2003, which is about where we are now in terms of taxes, the average residential tax bill, and let's talk about the tax bill, not the tax rate. The tax rate is a simple calculation based on levy versus total valuation. Let's talk about the actual dollar amount that taxpayers pay. The average residential tax bill in those years increased 50%. At the same time, inflation increased 30%. So right then and there, we're behind the 8 ball in terms of paying taxes, where we far exceeded the inflation rate, which is unacceptable. To add insult to injury, in that same time period, the residential property values have declined 20%. So we're getting hit at both ends. We're having to pay higher taxes for a higher average residential tax bill, and our property values are going down the tubes. Now, they have started to come back a little bit, granted, but for those years, 50% increase in taxes, 30% increase in inflation, 20% plus decrease in property values. That's what happens when we compare Milford to Milford. We fall far below other towns when you do that kind of comparison. Additionally, this current tax year, the average residential tax bill, not the rate, but the actual bill that people have to reach into their pocket and fork out, okay? The average bill is 30% higher than the median average residential tax bill across the state. So how that equates to Milford taxpayers having it great, I don't know. That escapes me. I believe that as a selectman, We need to work towards encouraging other boards and other departments to rein in their expenses, buy better, use better, spend less.
Okay. Moving on from taxes, we certainly get to the next big elephant in the room at budget time: school funding. Chapter 70. We know that Chapter 70, the formula that's used to allocate state funds, is somewhat antiquated, and it really needs a second look up there on Beacon Hill. They need to take a look at that and see what they can do to alter the funding mechanism statewide. One of the challenges that the Milford school system faces is the high percentage of English language learners, the ELL students that we have here in Milford. And educating them, obviously we need to try and group them together. Those that speak a certain language need to be grouped together, and they need to learn English so that they can, but kind of like by an English immersion type of teaching style. Within a year or so, they're supposed to be proficient enough in English to begin learning. And there's other pressures on the school system as well. Some of the kids that are our English language learners, they may or may not have had much of a formal education in whatever country they lived in prior to coming here. So that also adds pressure on the school system. What are your thoughts on Chapter 70 funding and what we can expect from Beacon Hill?
I believe you're going to see some changes for the better with our new governor in place. And I believe that not only school funding, but general overall municipal funding from the state will get much better. I believe we have the right governor in place now to get that done.
So, okay.
As far as I mean, there are statutes that we have to rely on in terms of education and educating non-English speaking students, students that immigrate from other countries. What we have to be careful of is the illegal immigration and how we can deal with that issue. One of my proposals, if I am elected, will be to try to get my fellow board members to form, and I know we have a committee for everything in town, okay, and maybe the one thing we don't need is another committee, but I believe that we should form a committee to look into how we can get our hands around illegal immigrants in Milford, coming to Milford. Now, I know people will say, oh, there are laws that we have to follow that prevent us from doing anything with respect to preventing illegal immigrants from coming to Milford. That is true, but there have to be things that we can do to make Milford less attractive and less inviting for illegal immigrants to come here.
Well, when you look at immigration, though, Mike, one thing you need to really bear in mind is it's a federal issue. It's not a local issue, and it's not really something that we can do on a local level. As far as how to make Milford less attractive, one of the reasons why people would be attracted here is because of the high percentage of rental stock. There's a lot of apartments in Milford. There's a lot of three-family homes that have been converted to apartment buildings. So there's a lot of relatively inexpensive housing available. I don't think that Milford is making the town more attractive to illegal immigrants, but the fact of the matter is there's a lot of rental stock here, so it's pretty easy for people to find to put a roof over their head.
Yeah, it's not a question of making it more attractive to illegal immigrants. It's a question of making it less attractive, making it so they want to go to the next town over or two towns over because they have better benefits there than here. Extreme case in point. Framingham, a number of years back, either posted or allowed to be posted a notice in their municipal building that is basically said, and I don't have the exact verbiage, but it basically said, go to Milford. It had a little map drawn it with directions, 2 directions to Milford, down 126, down 85, 135 to Milford. They not like, but they will take care of anybody. Go there, live the life. Now that is an extreme case in point. I am not suggesting we do that. I'm not suggesting we post a notice directing illegal immigrants to another town. But Framingham, if you recall, 30, 40 years ago, was inundated with all kinds of crime, a lot of it due to the illegal immigration population they had there. They have come a long way in cleaning up their town. And part of the way they have done it, once again, I'm not suggesting we do this, but that posting that notice is an example of what they did.
That's a pretty serious charge, Mike. I have never heard of anything like that having been done in Framingham.
I can tell you.
Welcome any viewers to check that out.
I know this because I saw the notice. I was there. I saw it. I asked the lady at the desk, why that notice was posted, and her response was that, oh, we allow people to post things on the bulletin board, and that was it. Now, I went back there because I was working in Framingham doing some building, and I had the opportunity to go back several times to the building. Several days later, the notice was gone. Now, I don't know where it went.
So this wasn't an official notice. This was just something that some resident of Framingham posted on a bulletin board in Town Hall?
It appeared that way. However, as I said, Framingham either posted it or allowed it to be posted. One and the same. If it's posted, then in their facility, then they're responsible for it.
Sure. Well, let's.
And once again, I'm not suggesting we do that, but I am suggesting that there's got to be, and if we can't not do anything about it, fine. But at least let's get some people who are interested and dedicated in solving the problem. Let's get them to dig into it and either confirm that, look, we've done all we can, or look, we can do this one other thing or 2 other things. Let's get people working on it. I think with all the committees we have in town, one more committee to that benefit would not be one too many.
Okay. Moving on, we've already talked more or less about the Woodland School project. You listed some deficiencies that you found on the project there that you'd like to see addressed, and you mentioned how you got up at town meeting and talked about them. Another issue that's going to be coming up real soon is reuse of the Middle School East building. I know at least a little bit about that building, being the chair of Milford's Renewable Energy Committee. I'm privy to some information through the Mass Energy Insight program. Mass Energy Insight is a program that allows us to go to their website, and we pick up all of the various electricity and natural gas accounts. All the billing information is out there for the town of Milford. So what we did was we went and we found all the accounts, and we assigned each account to different buildings in town, and then we also input characteristics of the building, when it was built, square footage, things of that nature. And then from there, once we have all that information, we know, okay, this building uses these 4 accounts, and this building uses those 2 accounts, plus 1 natural gas account, et cetera, et cetera. Once we had all that information, we could tell basically how much energy each building was using. And when you compare that to the square footage of the building, you can say, well, how efficient is the building based on its square footage? Middle School East was always the outlier. It was the most energy inefficient building that we had in town. So my feeling is that the building certainly needs an energy retrofit before we do any kind of reuse with it. But your thoughts on what we should do with Middle School East? I know that there's already, like you say, we have committees for everything. We have a Middle School East reuse committee investigating possible uses for it. What's your thoughts?
I believe that is a worthwhile committee to look into what is the best use for that building. Generally speaking, just looking at it casually from the outside, because I have not seen an engineering study done on the building, my understanding is that structurally the building is in fine shape. As you say, yeah, it needs a little bit of work. But also, generally speaking, rehabbing an existing building is far less expensive and far more doable than building a new building. So I have to believe that the committee will look into, number one, do we want to keep this building or do we want to unload the building? A use that immediately comes to my mind is one that a lot of towns have, and that is what's called a town hall annex, where certain of the municipal offices are in another building other than the main town hall. That building may lend itself to that type of activity. I'm sure the committee is looking into things like that, as they are probably looking into other uses, other possible uses, office space, rental office space, or outright selling the building. We'll have to wait and see what they come back with.
Yeah, I think one of the things that that people were interested in also was perhaps getting Dean Junior College to locate some kind of a satellite campus there, which would kind of revitalize downtown a little bit. One of the problems we face with any kind of a reuse like that would be parking. There's not an awful lot of parking around the building. So, I mean, certainly people could park the municipal lot up the street and just walk down. It's not that far. But by the same token, parking is a problem downtown. It's not quite as easy to find a spot to park as it might be required should that building become a junior college satellite of any type.
Parking is an issue. However, keep in mind, we have at least one, and more than one, but at least one restaurant in town, in the downtown area, that has no parking, but has a very successful business. So we can get around the parking issue. There are ways to do that. And once again, this will come out when the reuse committee does their study and investigates. And I have all the confidence in the world that they will look into every possible use of that building or disposal of that building, if need be.
Okay.
I hate to get rid of town-owned buildings,
yeah.
as a rule, because the day you get rid of it, the next day you may say, gee, we could use that building for this that just came up. So I like, as a rule, to hang on to buildings and land that we have. But that's not to say that's the best thing to do with that building.
Yep. Well, we're about a half hour in, and you know what? I've been remiss. I didn't ask you for website, Twitter, Facebook, stuff like that. How can people find out more about your campaign and contact you if they want to, say, donate money or put signs up around town or get a lawn sign? I've seen your lawn signs out since I think you started right off on January 1st, didn't you? Somewhere around there, I started seeing your signs around town. Okay. So how can people contact you? What do you need to do to get a sign, et cetera?
Times are changing, and we have to change with the times. They're no longer the day when the written word was the only way to get your message out. We have to, and I have to, allow voters and citizens of Milford access to me in as many ways as I can. So I've done that both in terms of a website that I have, which they can look at my website, and on my website they can contact me in several different ways. I have an email address posted on the website where they can either leave me a message or comment on concerns they might have about my campaign. Or I also have, and this is very important, for some of the people who are resisting, not because they want to, but or because they're not able to take advantage of the current technologies in terms of communications. So there's a phone number. The old reliable, pick up the phone, call me anytime.
One thing we haven't heard is your web address. I think it's right here across the bottom of your sign. Visconti4selectmen.org.
All one word.
Yep, Visconti for selectmen.org. I guess we can't really see it. I don't know if you want to just maybe pick that up and show it to the camera. There we go. Visconti4selectmen.org. So if anybody wants to find out more about Mike's campaign, find out how to get a lawn sign, etc., feel free to head out there. And the phone number if somebody can't take advantage of the the new technologies, the internet, et cetera.
Absolutely.
What's the phone number?
I don't want to leave anybody out.
Sure.
I don't want to leave the seniors out. I don't want to leave the veterans out. I don't want everybody to have a chance to be able to contact me if they want.
Sure. What's
in
the
any,
number?
In any way they want. I also have taken advantage of the latest and greatest, I guess, which is Twitter.
Okay.
So I am on Twitter. People can tweet me with questions anytime they want. That
Okay.
is also on my website.
Okay, but we'll need the phone number for those people that can't use the web. What is the phone number?
I got you. 508-478-0020.
Okay.
Call me anytime, day or night.
Great. And you have your Twitter handle on ViscontiForSelectmen.org.
It is on there.
Doing anything on Facebook?
Well, I have a Facebook page which I periodically post things on.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm,
So if
I'm,
someone
I'm,
goes to
I-
Facebook, they can look up Mike Visconti
absolutely,
and find you.
absolutely.
Okay.
I am accessible in many ways. We have to stay current,
Yep.
but we can't forget the past.
Yep, absolutely. So the phone number again, 508-478-0020.
That is it. Now,
Okay.
are you reading that somewhere, or did you memorize it?
I memorized it. 0020 is pretty simple.
Okay.
So. I've always been good with numbers. I can't help myself. The youth center. That's another big elephant in the room from last year's budget talks. We're spending about $5 million doing a revamp on the youth center. What are your thoughts there? I know the building only cost us $1, but now it's costing us $5 million. So
Which is a very interesting point. And I did take the podium to speak on the youth center article. As I said then, and I'll say now, I am not opposed to a youth center in Milford. I was opposed to dumping $5 million into a dilapidated building. $5 million does not make a youth center. What makes a youth center is the management and the staff that run the youth center. And that is no better evidenced by the fact that the youth center now, for the past few months, has been operating successfully out of a wooden box on Cogner Street. So it seems to me that and it did then, and it does now, to dump $5 million into that building was the wrong thing to do. However, town meeting members felt otherwise, and there you have it.
well,
I hope it works out.
yeah. We will end up with a pretty nice building out of it, and like you say, let's keep our buildings. So it's kind of a balancing act on that, you know.
It was a real bargain for $1. Oh, wait
Sure.
a minute, I'm sorry.
$5
$5 million and
and
$1.
one.
I'm sorry. Yeah, what a bargain. What a bargain. I'm glad we were talked into buying that building.
There's asbestos cleanup to happen in there, et cetera. It does have its challenges, that building certainly, but it's great to have a youth center, have a senior center, all the various town services that Milford provides. So I think it's pretty wonderful. Do you have any campaign events coming up? Any fundraisers? Any?
I don't have anything planned right now.
Okay.
Still working on a few things, but I don't have anything set and cast in stone right now.
Sure. Well, it's absolutely very early to today's date, January
run-
13th.
My
so.
plan is to run a very streamlined campaign. As I said, I'm a conservative spender. I run my campaign the way I would like to see the town run, very conservatively, streamlined. A few good people as opposed to a lot of marginal people. And I'm not saying we have marginal people working for us, but the point is,
Your lawn signs are more than likely left over from your last race, right? I mean, is that one of the ways that you're able to economize a little bit is by recycling?
actually, some of them are, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
See, that goes back to dumping middle school lease. You never know when you might need it again.
Exactly.
Etch in stone your victories, write in sand your defeats. Words to live by.
It's a good philosophy, Mike. I like it. Let's see. We have the conservation land, the 200 acres over by the water company headquarters over there. That at one point it was proposed that we should make a payment to the trustees for reservations and put the land under their control, basically removing it from town meeting and removing it from town control. As far as just making it a conservation parcel and making it, undevelopable. I know that got tabled, but it may come up again. It may come up, during your term where you'd be elected as a selectman. What are your thoughts on that?
I would push for that land to be placed under a conservation restriction. Absolutely, without question. As a matter of fact, if we look back at the comprehensive plan that Milford had done back in, I believe it was 2003, one of the points that was mentioned several times throughout that report was that Milford is not doing enough to protect its open space land, and that we're on a path to develop the entire town, including all the open space we have. I would not like to see that happen. I believe a lot of people would not like to see that happen. We still need woods for our kids to play in. That's not a thing of the past. A conservation restriction, I believe, is the way to handle it. Now, also, along those lines, and getting back to town meeting for a second, I believe town meeting members were blindsided when that article came before them. And I believe this was unfair. The article that was mailed out on the warrant to all town meeting members included a vote to place that land on a conservation restriction. The motion that was made on the floor did not include that part of the article. I believe that motion probably could have been ruled out of order. It was materially far distant from the printed article that was in the warrant. Now, granted, you vote on the motion that's given at the podium, but it also has to, in some way or fashion, mimic what was written and sent out and approved on the warrant. That did not. I believe a lot of the town meeting members thought they were voting for a conservation restriction, when in fact they were not. They were only voting to put that land under the control of the Concom, the local Concom.
Right, the local conservation committee, when you say Concom.
Yeah, Conservation Committee, which, by the way, they are charged with making sure that developments are in line with the Wetlands Protection Act. They can't, if a developer came in right now and wanted to build out that land, the Conservation Commission could not say no if they met all of the standards of the Wetland Protection Act or other acts that fall under the Concom's purview. They can't say no. They have to say yes. Now, there may be conditions, but the land will be developed. It could be built on, not shovel built on tomorrow, but planned to be built on tomorrow, and we would lose all of that valuable space. I will push hard to get that land put in the conservation restriction placed on that land, which generally is a perpetual restriction. We can place some conditions on it. I believe it goes through, I believe it's an application to the Office of Energy and Environmental Action. I don't know the exact name of the committee in Boston, but it's under their jurisdiction as to whether or not they would vote whether to give us a conservation restriction on that land. Once it's recorded, I believe that a conservation restriction does not require re-recording. So once it's done, it's done. Unlike a preservation restriction, which is generally placed on buildings, for example.
Historic buildings.
Historic buildings.
Yeah.
And that falls under the State Historical Commission rather than the Energy and Environmental Agency.
Okay.
A little bit different, along the same lines, but a little bit different.
Okay. One of the big things that's actually not on our agenda, I thought of it afterwards, there's the runoff, the water runoff problem that the EPA is saying we have to stop polluting the head of the Charles with phosphorus. And a lot of fertilizer, et cetera, causes pollution, causes algae blooms in the Charles River. What are your thoughts on that? I know that there's been a lot of back and forth on that with the EPA, and that may come to a head sometime during the next 3 years.
That's a problem. It's definitely a problem. And I know it's a problem because 15, 16 years ago, when I was on the zoning board, a development was proposed, a major development was proposed that included a massive amount of pervious space, grass, lawns, that type of thing. One of the conditions that I pushed to have placed on the approval of that application was that any and all fertilizer will be phosphorus-free. Phosphorus-free. This is 15, 16 years ago, long before a lot of people even heard of this, groundwater runoff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of I know it could be expensive for the town. I don't want to see that happen. I want to see us somehow get out of that, and I would work towards doing that. But we do need to do something about it. And I have to give credit. I give credit to people who deserve credit. And our town engineer right now, she is one of the, if not the best I've ever seen. Now, I haven't had dealings with her, but I've dealt with a lot of engineers in a lot of different towns, and I've dealt with applications to the state for the FEMA and all different kinds of state applications. I know it's very complicated, and I know that it's repetitive, and it takes a lot of time and effort. And from what I've seen come out of our engineering office in town, we have our arms wrapped around it right now.
Okay. Moving on. Milford Pond, kind of related to the phosphorus. I believe Milford Pond has quite a lot of algae in it, and perhaps that's related to the phosphorus blooms that have been happening. What are your thoughts on the Milford Pond project? I know I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you got up and talked about that at town meeting as well.
I did talk about it at town meeting to the extent that I was opposed to voting it that particular night because the vote was to appropriate the entire amount of money, which would have been our share and the state's share. If we voted that and the state then looked at it, because the state had not committed any money at that point, my feeling was, let's wait till we get a commitment from the state for their share. Otherwise, we're going to end up footing the entire bill of both our share and the state's share. You know, the Corps picked up a good portion of it, but then the rest was divided between the state and the town. So what I was opposed to was voting it before we had a commitment from the state for the amount of money they were going to contribute. I was not opposed to actually revitalizing the pond.
Doing the project.
Doing the project.
Right, right. Do you have any idea where that shook out? Did the state finally pony up some of the cash?
You know what? I can't speak to that because I don't know.
Okay.
I believe they did, but don't quote me on that. I
Okay.
would have to
Yep.
look into that.
Yep.
I believe they did. I hope they did. I'd hate to see my worst fears come true.
Sure, sure.
By the way, that was also the case with the Woodland School when that came to town meeting. $60 million. We had no written commitment from the state to ante up their share at that point in time.
Yeah, but I think the school building fund is pretty much a done deal. It's not that we needed that commitment. On top of that, there was, I think, Al Correa got up and said, well, you know, if the state doesn't pony up their cash, then yeah, we're not doing this. So, you know, I mean, we had to,
Well-
the town meeting had to approve it. We had to move forward in order to be able to say, let's build that
Yeah,
school.
I don't know how you can say, if the town meeting appropriates the money to do it, I don't know how you can say we won't do it.
Well, I don't think town meeting appropriated $60 million. Right?
Town meeting appropriated
The town's share,
the town's share.
right? And then pursuant to
In
getting
order
the
to
money from the
reverse
state.
that, it would have to go back to town meeting again.
Right, but I think that was a safe bet. We're gonna
By
get
the way,
that
one of
we're
the
gonna
other
get the school
things,
building
one of the other
funds.
things, as long as we're talking about town meeting, and I am not going to mention any names because it would be inappropriate for me to mention names because I don't want to embarrass anybody. But there have been funds appropriated at town meeting for a particular thing, item. Those funds have been spent on something else. Now, that's one instance that I know of. But if I know of one, my concern is how many others are there? How do we know who's watching where the money that is appropriated is being spent? I would look into that. I would like to see a system of checks and balances so that does not happen again. And if you appropriate money at the town meeting to buy, and I'm not picking on the fire department, but as an example, if you appropriate money at town meeting to purchase a new ladder truck because it's absolutely needed, that's fine. The next day, let's say, and once again, I'm not picking on the chief, I'm just using it as an example. The chief says, you know what? I don't think we really need that new ladder truck. I think I need a new chief's car, and I'm going to spend some of that money on the chief's car. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely not.
On a smaller scale, that is exactly what happened. Nothing to do with the fire department. Don't get me wrong. Nothing. It was not involved the fire department appropriations whatsoever. Mm-hmm. But it was an appropriation. It was spent on something else. Unacceptable. Who's watching the dollars being spent? And being spent on what? I will find out.
Okay. Downtown revitalization and beautification. I know that the Citizens for Milford are involved in doing some revitalization downtown. In fact, their meeting is this week. It's tomorrow night, their open meeting. I don't know if you're planning to attend.
I was planning on attend. I think they're doing a good job.
Of course,
I think they do good work for the town.
Pardon me?
They do good work for the town.
Yeah.
I think the downtown looks pretty good this year with the decorations.
Yeah, with the holiday decorations that was very nice.
Getting back to the comprehensive plan for a second that we had done back in '03, one of the other things they picked up on was the disarray that the downtown is in with respect to signage. The signage is all over the place. As a matter of fact, I think they used the term cluttered with all different kinds of unattractive signage. We need to clean that up. We need to have some stricter bylaws with respect to the type of signage that is allowed downtown. Many other towns have done it. Drive through these other towns. Drive through Westboro. Drive through Marlboro. They're very restrictive, not to the point where it affects the businesses, but it's far more attractive with some simple sign regulations. We need to clean the downtown area up. And that's part of it. Right there in the we have this comprehensive plan done, cost us money. I shouldn't say every, almost without exception, every committee and board was interviewed by UMass people that did the comprehensive plan for input into what they felt about different aspects of the plan. They come back with a very comprehensive plan, pages long. We should not ignore it. We should take some of the advice that they've given us in that comprehensive plan and put it into action, implement it. Not all of it, but at least some of the items that are important, the ones I mentioned.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned that. This is nothing that I've ever heard of. Of course, I really didn't get involved in town politics until 2006, 2007, so perhaps I wasn't aware of that study. Would it be possible for you to obtain a copy of the results of that study? I would love to be able to share that with the folks at Citizens for Milford. As you know, I'm part of the core team there at Citizens for Milford, so I'd be happy to share that with them.
If you go to the Town of Milford website,
Okay?
it is on there. There is a link to the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
And I
do
believe,
you have any idea where it is? There's a big website.
which brings up another point, okay?
Yeah.
And I know they're probably working on it. We need to clean the website up a little bit, make it a little more user-friendly.
It is kind of tough sometimes to find things. I was looking for some stuff the other day.
It
and
is.
I ended up calling Amy and having her just get it for me because.
And that comes with time. You know,
Yeah.
some revisions I'm sure will be made.
Yep. Well, staffing is another area entirely. I mean, Milford is basically it's an $80 to $90 million a year business, and yet we have one IT person. I've worked for some large businesses. They typically, when they're that size, they have more than one IT person. So perhaps staffing is something else that you might be interested in looking at.
This gets back to my earlier point. One good person I'd rather have than 10 not so good. Also, as relates to that, I would have, and I still will, well, there's not much we can do about it now because the person is in place, but we need to look at using more consultants as opposed to hiring more people, because those costs to hire people, to pay people, salaries, those are not one-time things. Those go on, that goes on for years after the person is gone, retired. You don't have those costs with a consultant. They come in, they do what you want them to do, and they're gone. Thank you very much, goodbye. Last you hear from them, unless you want them again. So I think we have to do more with consultants as opposed to hiring more people. Big government, okay, if you will. Don't need big government.
Well, speaking of hiring decisions, recently the treasurer's position was taken off the elected position roles and put under the control of the Board of Selectmen. They hired a treasurer, and now it appears that our treasurer was unable to perform the duties of the office and will be stepping down, and they're looking for a new treasurer. You have any thoughts on that whole?
I do. Let's consider the previous two treasurers
Who were elected to the position.
who were elected to the position were phenomenal in terms of what they could do and what they did. So, as I said at town meeting, I believe the position should have remained an elected position.
I was with you at town meeting.
Should
on
have
that one,
remained
Mike.
an
Yeah.
elected position. And if it did, I can't predict what may have happened, but we probably would still have a duly qualified elected person in that position.
Well, I certainly think that when you run for a position, you're more likely to want to inhabit it. This is something that you won in a contested election. It's not something that you're going to step down from. So, and I certainly looked at it as the town of Milford, the citizens of the town of Milford who vote in our local elections had made good decisions in the past. I didn't see the reason for putting that under the control of the Board of Selectmen. I was with you as far as your opposition to that motion at town meeting, that article at town meeting was concerned.
Well, I tried. Too bad there weren't more people with me.
Right. Right. There was a good few of us, but certainly not enough. So we're down to our final 3 or 4 minutes here, Mike. If you want to make your case to the voters of the town of Milford as to why you should be elected selectman on April the 7th, Tuesday, April the 7th. And I do want to remind everybody who's tuning in here tonight, please get out and vote. It's vitally important that everybody vote. Democracy only works when we all participate, and especially local elections. The closer the election is to home, the more influence you have. Everybody should vote. Unfortunately, people only get out to vote in presidential years, and very few people actually vote in the townwide elections in the spring. This year, if this year is the same as prior years, we'll be lucky to see 15% turnout.
I agree. It is one of the most important things people can do. And I would say that I'm hoping that the people of Milford will vote for me. But at least vote. At least vote. Please vote for me, but at least vote.
Okay, so I'll give you the last 3 minutes here to make your case. Why should people vote for you? What's your platform, and what do you stand for, Mike?
Well,
and also make sure to give your website again, et cetera.
Once again, I'm a worker. I'm a fact finder. I'm an objective thinker. I'm a logical thinking person, and I will work hard. I am committed and aligned with nobody, no group, no person. I would vote in a manner that I think is appropriate regardless of who proposes the motion. I have always done that, and I will continue to do that. I am available, by the way. I am available also. I will be there. I run my own schedule. I have virtually zero commitments that I cannot reschedule. I do some minor consulting from my home. I don't do a lot now. I've scaled back just because I'm not saying getting lazy, but I've worked hard for a long time. I do a little consulting for companies that I used to do a lot of work for years ago. I still do some work for them, but I am available at any time, pretty much. I can work around anybody's schedule. I think this is no better evidenced by the fact that when I was on the zoning board, for the first 16 years that I was on the zoning board, I had a perfect attendance record. I did not miss one meeting. When you volunteer for something, when you ask to be appointed to something or elected to something, you commit yourself to that. And when you commit yourself to that, you make darn sure that you fulfill that commitment. The first meeting I missed, and I'm not crying, but the first meeting I missed was a result of me literally being flat on my deathbed at Mass General Hospital. And my wife would not let me go to the meeting. Of course, I would have had to go by helicopter, but that's okay. Now,
You couldn't call in? Gee.
I missed, I didn't know where I was. In any case, I missed, I believe, possibly three meetings I believe I missed.
Mm-hmm.
After that, I then came back for 4 or 5 more years and did not miss a single meeting. When I commit to something, I commit to something, and I will be there.
Mike, it's been terrific having you on the show. I really wish you a lot of luck in the upcoming race. Again, Election Day, folks, is Tuesday, April the 7th this year. By all means, please get out and vote. You've been watching All Politics is Local. All Politics is Local is a production of the Greater Blackstone Valley Democrats. For more information about the Greater Blackstone Valley Dems, feel free to visit our website at www.gbvdems.org. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Good night.